Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to Gofie German Old Fart in England. This is episode 6, and this episode is all about culture shocks. So, I have been talking to quite a lot of people who used to live here or live here about the culture shocks they have, and also about the differences between whatever culture they're from um, and the English culture. And because I ended up having so much footage, this will be a two-parter. So this is literally the culture shock episode part one, even though this is episode 6, and then the next part two will be episode 7. I'm very episodic, and also it's sort of I think I probably have OCD. Well, I do know I have OCD. It's just it's easier for me once I know I have done an episode and it's sort of done. Um, Causes me much less stress in a way. So yeah, because I had so much footage, I didn't want to do an ultra long video. So yeah, anyway, cut a long story short, you get a two-parter. This is part one. Enjoy. Hello, Sylvia.
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, okay. Been okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this is an episode about foreigners living in the UK and about the culture shocks um, that you experienced. So let me just ask you first, for the viewers, where are you from? How long have you been living here? Um, yeah, let's just start with these questions.
Well, I was born in Italy. I was born in Lombardy, Lombardie, if you speak in German, which is in the north of Italy. And I've been living in the UK since the 6th of January 1994. So it's over 27 years.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
And I've been living here for 11 years, and I
Uh-huh.
and I do feel it has sort of changed my personality. I sort of feel less. It sounds weird, but every time I go back to Germany, I call them the Germans. So I don't necessarily feel like this is my culture anymore, right?
Well, I'm like a citizen of the world, to be honest.
Absolutely.
When I go back to, despite the fact I've still got a very strong Italian accent.
Same here. I have a German accent that will never go away, but I'm cool with
No, I
that.
don't.
You know.
Unless you have elocution lessons, but I don't want elocution lessons.
Yeah.
But when I go back to Italy, actually people say I speak Italian with a foreign accent.
Yes. Actually, my family in Germany said that to me. You
Yeah,
know,
and
they find it funny.
yeah, it uses one a different structure of a language. So sometimes my sentences in
Absolutely.
Italian are built in a very funny way.
Yeah, it's also because I don't know about you, but I do, obviously we both speak English for the
Yeah.
majority of time.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then I
absolutely.
have started, because I've been living abroad now for 21 years. So I lived for 10 years in Ireland, in Dublin. So I dream in English. So
Yeah.
so when I have to switch back to my sort of native tongue,
Yeah.
very difficult.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
let's quickly talk about some of the culture shocks that you experienced then when you came here.
I think I went to live in Bristol and I had to learn English. I could speak quite a good English for the time, but I learned at school. Then I was also listening to the Voice of America on the radio. But what I still find puzzling is the English spelling, because I was living in Bristol and I used to live down the Gloucester Road. And when we first came to
Oh,
live, as students, we used to say Gloucester.
yeah.
And
I mean,
still
yes.
nowadays, yeah, the spelling rules just use
And I had no idea that Worcester is Worcester,
yeah, same here,
right? So
absolutely.
the English spelling is something else altogether, and also having the same term for different things,
Yes,
you
yes,
know.
yes.
So yeah, but culturally, what was sort of the easiest thing to get used to? Is there anything you really like about the Brits, and is there anything you really think like they're completely mental?
No, I mean, I love it was a very diverse society because I was born in Italy. I lived in Milan. By the time there weren't as many immigrants as there are now, because Italy is a very diverse society. And it was great for me. I just got to know people from the Asian community, people from the Black Caribbean community. because in Italy I did never had that chance.
Right.
And I loved as well, even I'm bigger now, but so the choice of food and just seeing people dressed up in different ways, like when you see women wearing saris, or people, like coming from Africa who wear very loud clothes. I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Italy, in particular here in Milan, it was very hell bent on fashion, and I really never fitted in.
Yeah. Can imagine. So with the English then, obviously one of the best things I find is because in Frankfurt we're very loud. I'm a very loud person. I've always been very loud.
Yeah.
It's also one of
Yeah.
those things that when you're not loud, nobody can hear you in Germany.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's the truth, And in England, I can bump into people and they apologize. So I find that interesting. I also find it to this day remarkable that everybody queues very well,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
And the other thing I find less remarkable, personally, is that every time people ask me where I'm from and I mention the country, there's some bloody speech about bloody Hitler.
Oh,
and there seems to be still, I mean, I'm in my 50s now, but I still see a lot of people still have this fascination with the war. So it's a never-ending thing, where people have these misconceptions about us. So and I remember the hardest time for me living in the UK was when the whole Brexit thing happened, because then I had to get a passport from the Home Office. I had to have people vouch for me whether or not I'm a good person, so I could stay here to get my settlement status. And also at that time, I think it was about 2015.
2016, yeah.
About that time, I had a stall in Erdington where I did my readings, and this is also where, and this hasn't happened to me often, but I was actually on the receiving end of racism.
Oh, yeah, it has happened to me before, to go back to my country. There are people sometimes that think I sound like German because I'm not a traditional Italian. I'm very washed out, and I learned German, and now I'm learning Dutch as well. So people say you got a very German attitude, but in the Lombardei, we were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So some of the stuff has come through culturally. We're very similar to, at least to Bayer, to Southern Germany.
And also it's quite interesting. This is what I mean. The German attitude is quite interesting. Because when I go to Germany, I have relatives in Frankfurt and relatives in Hamburg, and these people are miles away in how they behave and what their attitude is towards life. And I think it's because Germans in particular, we're sort of highlighted in the movies as always the villains, kind of stuff. So we can't win this kind of thing. So, but you're still somehow active in anti-Brexit, in pro-Brexit thing. What is this about? Because obviously there was so the people here decided they don't want to be in the European Union anymore.
Well, I could one at a time. The problem was that it was an advisory referendum, and clearly, and also, the other side lied. The people didn't know what they were waiting for, and you can actually see now. You got shortages on the shelves.
Yes.
When you go to supermarkets. They get all the Eastern European or the European coming over doing the menial jobs, and nobody else is doing them. And then there is also, there is no more freedom of movement, roaming charges. And I've been active for the past year. I've been down in Westminster with Steve Bray, was known as Mr. Stop Brexit, Mr. Why Brexit. And I'm still very active down in Westminster, holding the government to account with placards, with banners, challenging Tory MPs. And I do as well a lot of demos and events all over the country. Did you follow my Facebook?
Yeah, I saw it, and all I noticed is you're never home.
Yeah, basically. Well, today I'm catching up on some hours.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see why she's still home. I should have been in Manchester today for a Keep the Bill demo, but I had other stuff on. I'm very much involved. I'm like interested in shamanism. I think the shaman for me is somebody who should be a warrior to defend the rights of the weak and to give hope to society.
Yeah.
When I stand there, like in Parliament Square with Steve Bray, with our banners and placards, people come up to us and say, you're giving us hope. And this is what I'm doing. I'm speaking of the people who are deserting, because not everybody was born to stand up, making a lot of noise, with
True.
a megaphone,
Yeah,
shouting and
true.
everything.
And
People
also,
are
you
scared.
also need to have the conviction, because obviously you have been living here since 1994.
Yes.
So therefore, if you didn't like it here, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. And
Just to bring it back to the sort of the sort of more light-hearted aspect of my vlog here, what is it that kept you here?
I could be myself, because before Brexit, or before things, you could be yourself. You just wear what you wanted, be who you wanted to be. I had my friends. I didn't have to worry about social gaps, and I loved it. And it was so international. And we were connected. We were an international society, with connection to Europe and everything. And yeah, this is why I stayed here. Now I'm 52, going for 53. If I wanted to relocate to another country, there would be issue with transferring the pension, for example.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I was 25 when I came here. I spent more than my adult life in this country, and I'm used to this culture. Okay, I could move to Scotland, which I lived in Scotland for 15 months. I could move to Wales, but why should I uproot myself after a certain age? As you know,
Sure. And also, yeah, absolutely. And also, there's I choose to be here because this is, and everybody has a certain different story. When I was a child, when I was 6 years old, I said to my mum that when I'm a grown up, I go to England.
It was the same. I used to watch the British sitcom.
Yes.
And I used to tell people, I want to go and live there. And eventually, and it was actually the easiest way, because English is an international language.
Yes.
I'm not Finland, but I'm not Finnish. We're moving to Finland.
Yeah.
Compared to moving to England.
Yeah. But I always sort of felt eventually I will end up here. But let's go back to culture shocks.
Yes.
So forget about Brexit. Just go back a little before the time, because you have spent loads of times here before there was a political issue like Brexit, right? So what do you like the most about living in England, and what do you hate the most about living in the UK?
People talk about the food. I love the food here because I'm vegan, and you actually see things which are clearly labeled they are vegan. I don't know. I'm so used to live here. It's just my own home, and I like as well. It's very multicultural. When I live in Birmingham, my road is only, I would say, a third white. There are people from other ethnic community. And I love it. I wouldn't go and...
To be fair, because I lived in Birmingham for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it felt like Frankfurt.
Yeah, or New York, or London, because it's so diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet, I don't know, I'm sure I'm not the only German in Cannock, but I could be. No, I haven't looked yet, I'm not going out of my way to meet new Germans. But and what is it that is there anything that you really dislike about the culture?
Well, I don't like this kind of obsession with the war, with the imperial past. You said you're German, I'm Italian. The times I've heard jokes about
fascism
during World War II.
Yeah.
About letting down the German side and stuff like this. I don't like racist attitude. They find I was born British, I was born English. And then the person in question has got a surname of French, German, or Italian origins. Something else I don't like is the excessive drinking. As you will know, in Italy, drinking is a social thing. I think it's the same in Germany.
Yes.
You go out, you socialize with friends. Getting drunk in Italy is a social no-no, in particular if you're of a certain age.
Right.
And it's enjoying the social. Here people go out and they get absolutely hammered.
Yeah. In their defense, I spent 10 years with the Irish.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh,
So no offense to my English viewers, but you got nothing on the Irish. The Irish were like absolutely. It was unbelievable. the pub culture was incredible there.
Yeah, but I think the Irish people are more jovial when they get drunk. Sometimes you see English people fighting, the fuck up, bring it on attitude and go back to your country.
Yeah.
This is something I really don't
Do,
like.
do you think so everybody has their own thoughts, and I obviously from a foreigner point of view, I always find, because the English have that saying here, if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I think they are oftentimes also sort of conditioned to not speak up, and so when you're then drunk, you lose some of the inhibitions. Do you think that it is it is a bit of a repression and that comes out?
I particularly regarding feelings. I mean, I was born in Italy. I'm female. I'm very open with my feelings. I explore with people. I don't have to be drunk. And here in particular, sometimes as well, men on my age, they are not used to deal with feelings. There is a conflictual situation. They drink over it. They won't discuss it. Then when they are drunk, I think we just go off a tangent. Yeah, I think it's a cultural attitude. Yes.
Okay, because it's not often that I'm sort of on the pro side when it comes to my home country, if that makes sense. But with regards to voicing our emotions, I also have noticed, even with my English friends, that they are more reluctant to openly state how they truly feel, kind of thing,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.
And cheers.
Cheers. Bye. So, let's move on to the next. Yeah, it's working. Hello, Nicole. Too late. Camera is rolling. So, I'm doing this exercise or this episode on culture shocks, right? So I'm going to ask you with the first question is, how long had you been living abroad? Because I know you moved back to Germany, to an awesome city, Frankfurt, where I spent most of my youth and my my early years in life, so to speak. So, but tell us, how long have you been living abroad? How many years you've been living in England? And then, what were the biggest culture shocks you noticed between Germany and the UK?
Okay. I had been living, oh my God, abroad 21 years actually. Almost 10 years in the Republic of Ireland, and then 11 years, we counted 11 years, in the UK.
Wow. And you lived in one place, right? You lived in Birmingham. The second city, as they call it.
Yeah.
So obviously, Ireland was quite an experience. I always say to people, and I find there's a massive difference between culture shocks in Ireland, Southern Ireland, as the British call it, and the UK. So, from your point of view, then, what were the biggest differences, maybe, and maybe some culture shocks that you sort of experienced over the years living in the UK?
The top of my head, honestly, I think there are so many. Mostly, the people are different to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Also, how we approach people, like, obviously, even when you go on the bus, right? Just the simple, easy one. You go on a bus and the driver's like, "How you love?"
You're right, darling.
In Germany, honestly, because I've been living here now for 4 months. 4 months, yeah. Nobody speaks to the driver. Nobody. I go in there, I say good morning, like I do. Nobody speaks to him. Nobody.
You will also notice that sometimes the driver will tell you, sometimes the drivers in Germany will actually tell you not to speak to him.
No, but he has to open the door anyway.
Sure,
Because I come on the front, because now they let you off at the back and you have to go on the front anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to show a ticket, so we trust you kind of way. But nobody speaks to him. We just walk in. We don't look at him. We don't speak to him. I say good morning, or I say something at least, Nobody says thank you either.
Yeah.
I say thank you all the time.
Which is also interesting, because that's one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you have noticed that too. Because you've lived abroad for 21 years, you not only adapt to another culture, you are that culture.
Exactly.
And I noticed
Just
this,
take it on.
because every time I go back to Germany, as a guest, so to speak, I always find the Germans rather rude. When in fact, when I think back, we're not rude at all. It's just not our custom
Exactly.
to pass someone by and says, "All right," kind of thing, or even the German equivalent. You would like, "Why are you talking to me?" Very different,
Yeah, but even when I leave the house, it's always mostly the same time. So I meet the same people when I walk down the street because everyone leaves the house like they have their own routine. I see the same people 5 times a week. And in Ireland and England, they certainly after the third day would say good morning or smile at you or something. Here, nothing. and I'm just thinking of myself, strange. But now, obviously, I realize it must be the German way. And I find it so weird. Also, what I've noticed that people actually told me, because I didn't notice myself, but actually they told me, I apologize about everything. I said sorry about things that's not my fault. I said, oh, sorry. And I just they're laughing because obviously that's a mega, mega big thing in England. You apologize about everything.
Yeah, I was just saying to someone I interviewed for this episode that I can bump into people here and they apologize, which is in a way it's awesome. I mean, I'm not doing it on purpose anyway, but it's one of those things. And so what were the sort of some other quirky things that you probably experienced, and then obviously every country has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Was there anything you didn't like about your experience in the UK? Because obviously my idea here is to highlight how things really are, even though obviously this is my favorite country. I knew it when I was 6 years old that I wanted to live here. Obviously, yes, I'm a bit biased, and I'm not out there to be negative towards Germany or England either. But then there are things in each country, no matter where you go, that probably aren't so great. So just tell us a bit about some quirks that you found maybe funny or weird, and then about things that you really didn't like or maybe even didn't expect from the English.
I think it's weird how we date, how dating works. Like we go to the pub, obviously, and basically how many drinks do I have to buy?
Yeah.
This is how we date. Germany, I don't know really, but it seems very strange to me, the whole dating scene here. They obviously also have Tinder and all those kind of things, but it's not so prominent about the pub thing, how many drinks I have to buy. They probably take a bit more time to get to know someone before they take them home. You know what I mean?
I also find, and this is no disrespect to anybody, but I also find because we are the Germans as such, we are a very outspoken lot. We normally say what we mean. Therefore, whatever date you're on is at least more honest. Because normally, everybody's obviously trying to be on their best, bring their A game to the first date and kind of stuff. So there's more masks involved, I find, here in England at first than there ever were. Obviously I've been abroad for 21 years. What the fuck do I know? But obviously, we are more honest in how we actually interact with one another. I noticed this.
We definitely have to mention the humor.
Yeah.
My humor is not German at all. When I say things here now in Germany, they just look at me and I realize, okay, that was not their humor. So in England, because I lived abroad now, the Irish and the English humor might be a bit similar anyway, like black, dark humor. The Germans don't get it. The humor, and I miss this actually so much now that I'm gone. I left. The humor is just so amazing,
Yeah. It's because England is very subtle. The people here find them very subtle. I mean, as compared to the Germans, the English are very subtle, and their humor is the same oftentimes. Yes. Even if it's in your face, it's a different kind of in your face humor.
Yeah. Exactly. Or even if we make fun about something or someone, now even I don't know what I said to you earlier. Anyway, the subtitle things, for example, and it's just so funny. You can't explain it. It's just great,
Yeah, I remember trying to explain years and years ago. I was trying to explain four candles.
Yes.
to someone, and they didn't understand it. So I explained, what that means, and then there's four candles and four candles, and the guy misunderstood him, and they were like looking at me like, so why is that funny? And it is incredibly funny. It's hilarious,
Definitely,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So yeah.
So humor is honestly one of the. In the beginning, really, I didn't understand it, but if you live there for a while, you just soak it up in a way, and it becomes also part of you. I mean, honestly,
Sure.
my humor here is so different, and I'm telling you, I'm just definitely not German anymore. The things that Germans do is just so weird to me. When I go shopping now, everything is different. I'm just thinking what I'm gonna eat, because it's not nothing here what I used to eat in England, or not so much anyway. I'm looking for pita bread, for example. What? You can buy it for 70p in Aldi. Here I'm looking in 3 different shops, because it's not what the normal German usually eats. And I just don't where's my pita bread? It's like, I have to make my own pita bread now. No, but but obviously over the years I had a few bad experiences as well, but it's the same, like I can see here in Germany, the same about foreigners, right? Because when I lived in England and Ireland, I was a foreigner, so people would comment like, "Oh, why did you come here? When are you going back?"
Yeah.
A typical thing. And it's like, I live here now. This is my home. When are you going back home? But I live here. That's my home. Stuff like that. And it got, depending when situations were, it was obviously not so great. I always say to you, no, we don't mean you. What do you mean you don't mean me? I'm also a foreigner,
Yeah. And also, it's one of those cop outs. You talk about something, and then all of a sudden you notice that the person in front of you, is actually not like that stereotype that you just described. So you try to exclude them. Oh, we don't mean you. I remember, obviously, a weird memory that I have. I remember when we lived in Ireland, that people were saying like, I didn't know Germans have humor. And I said to them, like, how many Germans do you know? And they said, well, only you. But the stereotype was because we also, the way people see the Germans, because of the Nazi time. And then every time there's a villain on TV, it's either a Russian or a German, because we have this strong accent. So there is still this thing about keeping us in that mindset of people that we haven't changed since the 40s and kind of stuff, which can be quite annoying at times, kind of thing. And then so a lot of people obviously only know things from the media or whatever they have been taught in school, kind of thing.
But everybody says, I've been to Germany, it's very clean. That is definitely true.
Yes.
Even though there's a few parts in Frankfurt what I saw and experienced which weren't so clean around the main station, what I mean?
I always find, when you
clean.
Yeah, and I always find when you actually talk about the cleanliness of a country, you have to exclude airports and stations, because that's where you have tons of people, kind of stuff. But ultimately, I watched a video the other day of someone had a drone fly over German cities, and they had an English guy watching German footage, and he was like, this must be photoshopped. It's all so clean. And I was just like, no, it's just because you pay a really high fine if you litter. That deters you. And at least, I don't know how it is these days, but when I lived in Germany, we grew up knowing how to separate different things for recycling. And Frankfurt, as the only city in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, has what is called a Wäldchestag, which means a forest day. When I was young, we actually the Frankfurter, because I lived in Offenbach then, the people in Frankfurt actually got bin bags, went to the forest, cleaned everything, put them all in bin bags, and then there was a massive party, which was called a Wäldchestag. So from 12 from noon onward, all companies, everything was closed, and everybody just had a party. And so the awareness of environmental awareness is incredible in Germany, and it is. I mean, I always believe if I ever made that step to come back to Germany, don't count on it, people. But if I ever thought, I would go, I think I would find that the hardest. because I literally have no idea how to separate stuff. You know, or not. I mean, seriously, I mean, my sister once told me that I have to wash out the yogurt thing, and I was just like, screw you. I'm not, I think so. You get lazy when you don't have to do things, kind of stuff.
This is one of these things you don't have to. Nobody. It's just there are some differences. Racism is everywhere. Unfortunately, it doesn't even matter where you go. It doesn't matter because I've noticed here. Obviously political situations going on. People get more like, and them nation and this nation. And it doesn't matter where people are coming from. You always have black sheep everywhere. It doesn't matter, which passport they hold.
Yeah. And it's so easy, to just pick someone because they have just done something wrong, and then tar the whole race with the same brush or whatever you want to call it. It's really really weird. And I think it's one of the things that will be mankind's biggest learning curve, is to realize that underneath the exterior we really are more alike than unlike, kind of thing.
Definitely, but then you can't judge any just for a few incidents, a whole country for something.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
But what else? Food, obviously. Yeah, renting is different as well. I mean, I had to pay 3 months deposit.
Right.
In Ireland, in England, it's only in 1 month.
Okay. And in Germany?
3 months at least.
Oh, 3 months, yeah. Fucking hell.
3, and then you also have 3 months notice to give, which I'm like, I don't even know, it's weird to me anyway. But the whole process is very, German. Let's put it this way. Everything is like double, triple complicated. They just make it complicated. It doesn't have to be. It's just like, no, you have to do this, and you have to go to different authorities here and this, and then another stamp somewhere, and it's very strange to me, and I'm like, really, I didn't come here for this,
Yeah, which is also one of the things when you actually move abroad, and then you see that different countries handle things differently, you kind of go like, what's with the bureaucracy in Germany?
You don't have to. You don't have to make it complicated, but we just apparently like to be complicated.
I don't know if you have once if you have paid attention here, viewers, just like myself, Nicole also refers to the Germans in third party, the Germans. So it's weird because that's what I always say to people. Like, this is not. I'm not, like I said. I am German. This is my heritage, and yet I don't feel German. I actually call the country the Germans, even though people would obviously arguably say like, nothing British about you, mate. You're very German.
I went to another city, and I was at the train station, and there was an elderly woman walking by, and I thought I offer her my seat, so I offered her my seat in English. It's just not in my brain to speak German, so I just talked to her in English, and I don't even realize it. When she looked at me, and then I thought like, oh, I think I spoke English again. So I obviously said it to her in German. But it's just for me so normal to speak in English. I mean, at work I speak English now too, most of the time. So I don't even get into a habit to speak German. So and then if I hear people passing by and they speak German, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in Germany.
So would you therefore say that do you feel it took you longer than you expected to acclimatize to being in Germany again, or living the German life, whatever that means?
Yeah, I haven't adopted at all. Not yet. Let's put it this way. Maybe take me another 6 months, or maybe a year. I don't know. I would have thought because I've got family which I visited now, but it's just not. It's very strange to me. But anyway, let's see. It doesn't matter. I can always go back to England.
Yes. Which I always find, I mean, as long as the option is there, you're not bound to stay somewhere if you're really not happy, And if you ever decided to come back, I wouldn't necessarily see it as a failure. It's just, it was one of those experiences that just didn't quite work, kind of thing, Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in the last, obviously, you moved back about four months ago, you said. So you moved to Frankfurt, and obviously you are from quite a small place, which was then, well, not then, but back in the day, it was East Germany. And so, obviously, I remember all the conversations I had with your family about the Westies and the Aussies, and I was like, what? That kind of thing. So I remember that there's a cultural difference, at least, between the people in the East Germans and the West Germans, to a certain extent still, kind of thing. So now you are in the heart of Germany, right? I mean Frankfurt is really Frankfurt is obviously, and they call it Manhattan. Main is the river, and they call it Manhattan because of all the high rises, because it reminds people of Manhattan, and it's a financial center. So you're in a city that is massive. So what have you noticed that you really like about living in a place massively larger than Birmingham ever was? So is there pros and cons?
I was checking, because when you go to the city center, Frankfurt, it's not so large at all.
Is it?
And I was checking, Birmingham has over 1 million inhabitants.
Right.
And Frankfurt 770,000 only.
Oh.
So apparently we don't count the surrounding area. So
I'm
convinced that you have loads of people working in Frankfurt but not living in Frankfurt, so that don't count into,
right. I just noticed every time I go to, because obviously I used to live in Birmingham too, so obviously every time I went from Birmingham to Frankfurt, the first thing that hit me was the sheer size.
Yeah.
So Frankfurt feels.
What makes you think it's mega big, because it's I think actually the largest airport in Germany, Frankfurt. And obviously financial center, and you got the fairs going on, which if there are fairs on, it's good constantly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's every day something else, like a week full of books or whatever. So you think Frankfurt is massive, but if you kind of look through the areas, I mean, obviously it's like suburbs. We have in Birmingham.
This is nothing I really like about Germany.
Registered living in Frankfurt. Let's put it this way.
And I remember when I go to my sister who lives in Schwanheim, which is a suburb of Frankfurt, you really think you're in actually a sort of a village, sort of a German village. Also, the way the buildings are done. And in Frankfurt, you have high rises, and then you have what is called Old Frankfurt, Alt Frankfurt, where you have what is called, the town hall called the Römer. And these are all old buildings that are protected, which is nothing I really love about Frankfurt. It's this massive city, and then you go to a cobblestoned area with old houses from back in the day. So I think it always makes for a very interesting visit. If that makes sense.
And a lot in Frankfurt, I have to say, we're honestly very surprised. You can, on both sides of the Main River, there's green spaces where you can just sit and picnic or just sit or whatever. And loads of people, young people, obviously university students are here, loads of them. Any time of the day, people are resting near the riverside. And it's a long, I don't know how many kilometers, but it's a long way. All along the riverside, you can obviously walk, you can cycle, whatever, but it's in the middle of Frankfurt city center. So it's absolutely great when you come as a tourist. You just cross one of the bridges, which are many, of course, as well, loads of bridges, and then you can just rest somewhere, have ice cream or whatever, or beer.
Ice
cream. Pretzel.
So, before I let you go here, from sounds weird. From a German point of view, now that you are back in Germany, if someone says from the UK, I think I really would like to move to Frankfurt or to Germany. Let's just, obviously, because you're in Frankfurt, let's just use that as an example. What advice would you give them when they, if they really seriously think about moving to Germany?
What advice? People, the thing is, it depends which people you're gonna meet. Most Germans, honestly, what I have seen so far, are actually quite friendly. Honestly, in city center or wherever, people asking for directions and stuff like that, they are quite friendly. So people always assume Germans are so harsh and stuff like that. So far, I haven't noticed this at all. So I think you can be prepared I don't know, because I think in Europe, on the continent, people are more work orientated, so it's not so easy to get people to get to know you after work. Let's put it this way, because we're just always too busy. And now, obviously, with Corona and stuff like that, it's a bit like, we're not supposed to meet anyway. But it's difficult to make friends as such because people are just working and then we go home.
Right. Yeah, and also because Germany doesn't really have a pub culture as
Yes,
such.
exactly, yeah.
So even though when the weather is nice, I remember that because obviously we talked the other day and it was 17 degrees in Cannock and rain, and you had 27 degrees and sunshine. So so summers are something else altogether in Germany, as are winters. To be fair.
Not looking forward to this.
Yeah. But I think this is the other thing. Is one of the reasons actually why I started this channel is really to highlight the differences, because it's actually just fun, and also the more you know about a culture, the easier it is for you to not only adopt but to just understand that it takes time for you to get to know a culture.
One thing definitely very, very important when you come to Germany, always buy a train ticket.
Yes.
They're inspecting tickets here, like on almost every single train I'm at, they're checking the tickets. So it's no chance of actually jumping and save €4 or €5 because they're actually checking train tickets and tram tickets all the time. Buses, it's a bit more, not so much anyway, but trains and trams, all the time.
Yeah, because I remember I mentioned in one of my episodes that in England it's obviously quite common to just board a train and then someone pops by and says like tickets and passes and then you can pay there. You can't do this in Germany because it's what is called a silent contract. You enter, you go on a train, you agree to the terms and conditions, and one of these terms and conditions are to have a valid ticket. And also I noticed that in the past that just because you're not from there doesn't get you off the hook.
Nope.
Because
the machines are in all kinds of languages as well. The ticket machines are, I think, in 5 languages as far as I can remember now off the top of my head. Obviously English, French, Spanish, Italian, let's say, as well, or German, obviously. So you can't say, oh, I didn't understand. And you got the travel centers where you can buy the tickets, which are open like till 10 or 11 or something p.m. and then the ticket machine. So you really have no excuse not to have a ticket, in a way. So yeah, don't try it. No point. Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was awesome. Let me just switch this off.
Yeah.